power scaling, a term used to determine who beats who in a fight to the death, whether they're from an anime, TV show, movies, or video games. It's usually a fun little pastime. That is, until the sweat begins to kick in. There's something about talking with two like-minded people about the fictional worlds of different characters and how their power-ups will be matched and probably squandered under the heel of another super powerful opponent. Like how Dr. Doom could easily squish Darth Vader, or how Bubsy can solo Homelander with a single hop to the head. More will be explained soon. For this 3-part series, me and Ultra are going to determine who would win in a hypothetical scenario between two legendary pirate groups in search of one fantastic treasure. The Straw Hats from One Piece and the Gokaigers from Kaizoku Sentai Gokaiger.
Each team has a total of 6 members. We've decided to make this easier on the Gokaigers by leveling the playing field. On the Straw Hat side, we have Monkey D. Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, Nico Robin, Nami, and Frankie, all of which corresponding to the Water 7 arc.
And on the Gokaiger side, we have Captain Marvelous, aka Gokai Red, Joe, Gokai Blue, Luca Milfy with Gokai Yellow, Doc as Gokai Green, Ahim, who's Gokai Pink, and of course, Ikari Guy, Gokai Silver.
We won't be including the different Zords from Gokaiger, nor will we use any Ranger keys unless the Ranger runs into a situation where it would be beneficial to swap. But let's not forget the most important part. The Gokaigers still do the full-on morph sequence.
The fight will also happen within One Piece's world, so the Gokaigers have to play by the Straw Hats rules. It's an all-out battle to the... not death, in the middle of some random desert, just like some true tokusatsu fashion. The reason for these two legendary outlaw groups going at it? For the single reason they're both on their journey. The greatest treasure in the universe!
Either the Straw Hats lose with the Gokaigers hopefully getting intel on the greatest treasure,
or the Gokaigers fall, with the Straw Hats trying to get any answers about the One Piece out of them.
We should also mention that we're going to try to be as unbiased as possible. If you guys feel the fight will go differently than how we describe it, by all means, put your thoughts in the comments. Now, without further ado,
let's get ready for a bootleg death battle!
Let's focus on Marvelous versus Luffy first. Alright, we're gonna go through all of them, like 1v1, much like how both shows do. So Marvelous versus Luffy. Now, Marvelous is a skilled swordsman in his own right. He's not the best like Joe is, but Marvelous is very good with dual-wielding his pistol, his Gokai Saber, and his Gokai Gun, which I know is a flip-lock pistol. Don't get mad at me in the comments, but that's what they call it. Look it up on the Ranger Wiki if you want to. It's a Gokai Gun. That's what they call it. We got the Gokai Saber and the Gokai Gun for Marvelous, and Luffy is just his raw, pure strength. Unless Luffy uses like a one-handed or dual-handed weapon, but I never seen him use it, so he's just using his fists or his very around like big range of random bullshit go attacks.
Yeah, there was one point where he did grab a sword and started swinging around, but he's a shit swordsman. And what's it called? He throws away his sword immediately, so I don't think he's gonna be using a sword to begin with, unless it's to defend with. And he usually throws it away afterwards anyway.
Right off the bat, Marvelous has a bit of an advantage with the sword, and of course the fact that he has a sword and a gun.
What would you say the bullets are like for the gun, though? Are they like sparks of magic dust or something? Or like actual like pellets?
See, that's where it gets confusing with the Gokai guns, because it's like sometimes in the episodes they'll just be lasers, you know? But then in in fights like Marvelous versus Bosco, they look like they're real bullets. It's very weird and inconsistent with the bullets, but at the same time, I feel like just for the sake of the fight, we're gonna make them look like we're gonna have them be real bullets for the Gokai gun, but like a superpowered laser attack for the final wave, because I feel like that's how it should be. Just makes it a lot more fair, a lot more limited. So, of course, Marvelous with, let's put quotations on real bullets. That's what he's facing off against Luffy with. He has one sword, his sword in his right hand, Gokai gun in his other hand, and his wits and his skill fighting for the rest of it. What does Luffy have?
Luffy has his, what's it called? I guess speed, his creativity, and his fists. He does reflect what's it called, bullets or whatever. But I'm assuming Marvelous can get around that with just a sword. Or I usually see them swap weapons just in case on the situation if they're anywhere near each other. While they do their separate fights. So maybe we could see Marvelous with 2 swords or whatever else.
Yeah, like he just switches with Guy. So Guy has 2, because like if I remember correctly, there was like a moment where Marvelous or like somebody like switches weapons with Guy, and Guy has 2 guns. So
yeah,
if they're fighting in this one big mosh pit, and with Luffy throwing punches and kicks and using devil fruit, was it?
Devil abilities is pretty much stretching.
So that's all he has, like stretching powers too. I feel like
he's
stretching
really
powers would definitely get Marvelous, because Marvelous is not super powered. Like, sure, Marvelous has the Sentai powers and the Sentai teams and all that, but that's really all he has, unless he goes into into another Sentai form. Because I know Shinkenger, if he transforms into Shinkenger and uses I forgot the name of it, but it's the Shark Sword. Anyone who watches Shinkenger knows what I'm talking about. But like the Shark Sword, that stretches too, and like there's a lot of other Sentai abilities that do stretch as well. But like that's like the best one that I can think of at the top of my head. So what I believe like what Marvelous could do to like rival Luffy's stretching would be the Shark Sword, like the Shark Sword from Shinkenger. But that's really about it. So if Luffy's like stretching like Mr. Fantastic and just crushing Marvelous with like a big ass like fist, that wouldn't like count Marvelous out, but that would definitely send him flying backwards in a bit, and definitely get a lot of sparks in. And I should mention this too. I should have mentioned this before, but I should mention this. If rare events in the show, the Sentai Rangers or the Gokaigers will like morph out of their super forms, like their ranger forms, if they take too much damage and they use too much energy during their ranger forms. It's happened a few times in the shows, like all like 45, 46 plus years of Sentai. So I believe like the best thing that they could do, the Straw Hats at least, could like try to get them to like demorph, but I don't think they would know that these guys run on sparkling energy. So they would just hit them as hard as they can and just hope to God it does something.
Don't they usually get knocked out of their powers if they take too much damage?
So literally all they have to do is just hit them hard enough and make sure it hurts. That way they can like get out of their super forms for a little bit.
I could see at least the main 3 doing that, but like for other characters it'd be a little more tricky.
So I'm just gonna say this like flat out. Luffy with his stretchy powers, if that's all we're going off of, I don't think he'd be able to like fully get Marvelous out of his ranger form unless he does something like very crazy, like very Luffy-like.
I mean, he does have the muscle Fusen, where he just blows up his muscles to become really tough and giant,
that would do some damage,
and can crush.
So I think if Luffy were to do that, like what's the like what do you think would be like the standard that Luffy would have to go through in order to like just bust out the muscle one?
What's it called? If he notices that his attacks aren't working, he usually goes for Gear 3rd and goes for Muscle Fusen. But there is a shortcoming to that one, so after you use it for a bit, he becomes small, or shrinks down to a gingerbread-sized man. And he has to run away for a bit because he's small and not as powerful.
So let's say this. Marvelous would get his ass kicked if Luffy was, if Luffy sees that his attacks aren't really doing much to Marvelous in his Gokaiger form. And then he takes the Muscle Fruit. And in his Muscle Fruit form, Marvelous still holds his own, but Marvelous gets sent back, and he gets so screwed up that he demorphs. He's still up for the count, he still gets up, and he's still fighting with his sword and gun, but Luffy, at the same time, Luffy's Muscle Man. So Marvelous just has to figure out, like, what the hell is going to weaken this Muscle Man. But like you said, Luffy...
It's more like a timer.
How long does it take? Like how long does it take for Luffy to become short again or something, or just short in general?
I don't know the exact length, but I do know it's not much. It's like probably like 2 minutes, or what's it called? It's just a short, brief period of time. But he does dodge a lot. What's it called when he comes small? He's not gonna try to attack you.
Cool. So with that, Marvelous would try to like fight Luffy as like this big muscle man. And of course, Marvelous seeing that he just got his ass kicked and just sent back, like, like 10 years into the past. It's like he's like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going up and close to this guy. I'm just gonna try to find a way to do this. Obviously,
I mean,
this is probably part of the episode where you know, the Gokaigers all get together and they do final wave. But since we're focusing on 2 groups, Marvelous is on his own. Everyone else is focusing on the singular member that they have. So Marvelous is strictly on his own. Also, just makes it more fair. So with that, Marvelous would, you know, try to hit any weak spots that Luffy would have. And I think that's when, like, you know, the timer would go out and Luffy becomes small. But to be like anything that like Luffy would do in that, like besides like run away or like try to like retreat or something like that, or would he like?
He has really good mobility. Overall, if he didn't use gear 3rd, he could probably use a gear 2nd just to like get a speed increase. But I'm sure he wouldn't want to shorten his lifespan first. Well, that has to be proven differently a lot of the time. Because pretty much when he goes gear 2nd, he pretty much all of his attacks get a power up in speed and power. That's why you call him Jet Pistol and anything jet related, or Jet Bazooka. For when it's when he's a small form, you probably just try to go unnoticed. In general.
So basically, until the end of it, Luffy. So for closing out with Marvelous versus Luffy, or at least this is like what I see being the most plausible case, like picturing it all in my head. Luffy would, of course, become Muscle Man, revert Marvelous back to normal form, and of course, Marvelous try to like hit any weak spots and just shoot at him with like normal bullets, and like if he gets close, slash at him with his sword a few times and dodge any attacks that's going his way. Luffy becomes small, and this is Luffy's chance to basically get the hell out of there, make sure he doesn't get smushed or shot by Marvelous, which Marvelous has some really good range and a good shot, but even Marvelous can miss a few shots. So if Luffy is just very fast and very like sneaky with how he retreats, Luffy basically just makes a practical like a tactical retreat.
No contest.
I think that's like the best way that fight would end. Just Marvelous losing Luffy and he's being like, well, that's annoying.
Yeah, but maybe you could like bring it back later, because I know well, I don't think it needs to be brought back later, but I know Luffy doesn't give up easily.
It's just again, you know, it's just a tactical retreat. So
yeah.
All right, moving on to Joe versus
Gokaiger
Zoro,
still here.
the swordman. So instantly
Muscle.
right off the bat, I of course have to bring up the fact that Joe used 5 swords and Zoro uses 3 swords. That doesn't automatically make Joe the winner by a long shot. Zoro can still do some crazy stuff. And much like Marvelous, Joe's luck, or no, not Joe. Much like Marvelous, Zoro's luck is stupid.
It's the devil's luck.
He has stupidly powerful luck. So that's a big plus side on Zoro's part. And even with that, Joe gets his ass kicked more than Marvelous does. Even though he's like probably the most durable on the team, I still think Joe is like the most likely to get his ass kicked. Like when he's actually, because like you could say that Doc is like the most prone to getting his ass kicked, but Doc is Doc. He's not a born fighter. Zoro actively gets him like he doesn't like actively charge into battle like without thinking. That's more Luca, but like Joe is a one-man army. If he's going down fighting. So between Joe's very head straight like instinct to like charge into battle and like fight for his life depends on it with a strategy in mind. Because every time Joe got into like a sword fight that like, you know, was like heavily focused on him, like it was basically a sword fight to the death. Like, I'm gonna kill you or you're gonna kill me. Either way, we get what we want. So that's like Joe's mindset. I think Zoro is just like, hey, you have a, I don't know like what Zoro would be fully, but I feel like Zoro would just be like, listen, like you're in the way. You got a sword. I just want to see what your sword skills are like. Zoro's cool. Zoro's a cool guy.
Yeah, I'd say they're pretty similar when it comes to like pride or whatever. Where they both have this strong sense of pride. So like when they go into a battle, it's like like one of the main things for Zoro is like, I'm not losing again until not losing again until he beats Mihawk, which is known as probably the best swordsman in the world of One Piece. After losing the first time, but like the reason why he lost was because he was weaker, but he still didn't turn his back to the enemy. He doesn't run away, and he let himself get slashed to the stomach. And another awesome part where pretty much him and Marvelous have a giant similarity where they both take in BS attacks and still fighting on like nothing happened. I mean, they still feel the pain and stuff like that. They just like push it off to the side, like pain don't mean shit to me.
Right, which Joe does have that quirk about him too, but Marvelous, like I said, Joe would get his ass kicked more than Marvelous, and I'm pretty sure like Joe would be down like before Marvelous does, because Marvelous and both Marvelous and Zoro just have stupid luck, and Joe is more, I guess, grounded in that sense. So I think like how a fight would logically go between Zoro and Joe. And I just realized this is making me sound like I'm just bullshitting Joe, and I'm making him sound weak as hell. He's not weak as hell. Joe is like one of the most powerful members of the team, which is why this fight is like probably the most exciting one for me, because obviously right off the bat, Joe only has one sword. He doesn't start off with two swords. Joe has one sword, Zoro has his 3 swords. So instantly Zoro has an upper hand because he's using 2 swords, and of course I would go into my whole sword lot.
Three swords. Yeah, the weird part is he uses his mouth. I don't get that one.
So with that, Zoro already has an upper hand against Joe because he has 3 swords. So right off the bat, it's a sword clash. The two are going at it. Zoro has the 3 swords, as I mentioned 20 million times already, and Joe has his Gokai gun and his Gokai saber. Now, obviously, people would start, referencing that the Indiana Jones scene where Indy just shoots the guy with the sword, and it's like Joe versus Zoro. But Zoro survived a shit ton of stuff that's worse than a gun, or at least from what I.
He can also cut bullets out the air.
Even though Joe has a gun, that's not gonna stop Zoro. I'm pretty sure he's just gonna slice through all of his bullets, energy beams or not, and just dash at Joe with as much as he has. And Joe soon realizes, shit, the gun's not working. Hey, yo, Doc, switch with me. And then he gets a second sword. So we're gonna have that little scenario where Doc just switches his sword with Joe's other gun. So Doc now has 2 guns. Let's keep that in mind. Doc has 2 guns now. So Joe now has 2 swords. Zoro still has 3. And it's a clash of the century. They're going at it. They're slashing at each other. Now, thing about Joe is with his style, in the Blue Saber arc for Joe, of course he, spun around like a spinning top and, killed that one, I keep forgetting the general's names, because the villains of Gokaiger are not really that memorable. I can't fully remember their names, but except for Bosco, because Bosco is just amazing. I love Bosco. But he killed that one general dude, with the Blue Saber style and like the five sword style, which I don't think Joe would instantly think to do the 5 sword style because all of his other teammates are fighting like people already. So he doesn't want to weaken their defenses and like take away their swords. I feel like Joe would only do the 5 sword style if he can get at least most of them, like most of the Straw Hats in one spot to where he can just slash and use his Ranger keys to as much as his ability. But since he only has 2 swords now,
I'd say they have like comparable techniques too, depending on like their backstory.
Yeah.
Especially with Joe growing up inside some Zangiak army or whatever, learning how to fight from there, doing inhuman things. Whereas Zoro, this man was lifting weights with his jaw, and that's why he's even able to like clench his teeth that hard and like hold a sword.
Sigma mindset, by the way. I don't know. I tried doing that. Like, I tried to do. Well, I mean, not exactly like how Zoro does it because Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. But there is an actual workout thing that you train your jaw with. But that's besides the point. But yeah, so they both have like similar upbringings with like training from a very young age. Obviously, Joe's a little more tragic because he was raised by the Zangiak Empire, so he's edgy. And Zoro just has that I want to be strong mentality. So I feel like it all just comes down to who wants to severely cripple, or at least just who wants to bring down who first. I think that's like the biggest deciding factor. I think that's like going to be like the shortest like segment on this list, besides maybe like Doc or Him's style. Because with Joe versus Zoro, they both have gone through so much, and they both have like a lot of skills in the sword, to where it's like you can't really just say like, oh, Joe can use the 5 sword style, because we already established he can't just simply do that in this scenario. So I think this is like the moment where we both just have to be like, realistically, who would have the mindset of I'm going to like subdue you and not kill you, but you're gonna be out for the rest of the fight, or at least most of the fight. Like, who realistically would do that? I'm starting to think that maybe this is the hard part, because I feel like because of like Joe's. This is probably just me because I know more about Gokaiger than One Piece, but I feel like this is like with Joe's like attitude and his in his damage input and like how durable he shows to be throughout the show, and like his fight with that general with the 5 sword in the Blue Saber saga, or fighting like the final boss, like the final boss, the final guy, the Zanyak Emperor in the finale, and just like other episodes where he's like fighting like other Sentai teams, like the Gokaigers. You know, Joe holds his own against literal guardian angels. I feel like Joe would probably subdue Zoro, maybe, because Joe would just have Joe would probably have like no limits, and he would just.
I'd argue that since Zoro at this point can pretty much cut through steel, he can probably get him out of his form at least.
Okay, well,
at the very least,
Zoro can cut. Okay, then that just made what I just said completely irrelevant, because if Zoro is enough to the point where he can cut through steel, it's like shit. Well, then Zoro can just destroy Joe's swords.
I mean, like, I'm not even sure if those are steel though, because they come from a different planet with those weapons, and like I don't know.
I like to think that they are made of steel, because I mean,
but even have to be like actively trying to cut through the steel at that point though.
Yeah, it's never officially said that the like what the material the weapons are made out of, but we can only assume that it's steel. We can only assume that. So
okay.
With that in mind, if if Zoro can cut through steel, like straight up steel, then I feel like Zoro would just be able to cut through Joe's swords if he's given like the right precise moment to like slash both swords and just at least subdue him. Because remember, no one wants to kill each other here. They just want to subdue him and like get him down to, I don't know, like beat the questions out of him or something like that. I don't know. So I feel like with that in mind, just have to wait for the right moment to just slash both swords and then beat Joe down. That's like the best thing that I can think of.
Probably slash him, but not like cut to kill. Yeah.
I think that would be. I mean, the fight would not be easy. None of these fights are easy. Like, none of these are a one-sided. Oh yeah, the Gokaigers would instantly win this. The Straw Hats would instantly win this. But with Joe versus Zoro, with Joe versus Zoro, it would be a very long and tedious fight because both are just really good with the sword. But because of Zoro's just higher like chance of slashing through steel, yeah, Zoro wins. So, I'm just gonna make a mark of that for for later. So with that we have